I'm joined now live here in the studio by ETX Capital's senior trader, Manoj Ladwa. Manoj, thank you so much for coming in the studio. Now, you're expecting actually more fears on the economy, possible talk about a double dip to outweigh what we're seeing on the markets, and yet there's so much M&A out there. Is that not going to give a lift to the markets, at least in the short to medium term?
It is certainly lifting the markets in the short term, Francine, but there does seem to be a decoupling going on within the equity markets, whereby we're seeing low volumes. If we're seeing any decent volume, it seems to be on the downside as opposed to the upside. And all these M&A deals seem to be focused on certain stories, certain sectors, such as the commodity sector and the insurance sector. So you've got to be very specific about where you target if you're looking for an M&A potential company. But the equity market it seems to be following the general economy. The economic figures that are coming out, certainly out of the US, aren't good. Initial jobless claims, for instance, rising and continue to rise. Unemployment numbers, manufacturing numbers coming out weak. So we're expecting that theme being played out there. But then again, M&A activity, despite it being August, despite it being a quiet month, seems to be on the up.
So actually this M&A deals and this trend doesn't mean that a lot of these companies expect growth to continue rising in the next year. It's not an optimistic view, is it? The fact that they're buying each other?
It is fairly optimistic, but then we've got to look at the current environment and where we've come from as well. Share prices have been depressed. All these companies that were potential M&A targets a couple of years ago are now coming back into play, and it's because their share prices have been depressed, and also currency factors as well. We've had a weak pound, a weak euro, so that's making European and UK companies very attractive to foreign investors.
So you're expecting volatility to remain quite high over the next couple of months. When are we going to see a stabilization? Will it have to be when actually the economy seems a lot more certain?
Well, I think that's exactly it. Once we start to see a direction one way or the other for the general economy, there seems to be a lot of uncertainty with regards to the economy, and as long as we get that, we're going to see increased volatility as well.
We have actually, out of all the companies that reported on the Dow Jones in the States, 75% beat earnings estimate. You expect weaker corporate earnings in the future. How do you make the two work?
Well, I think with regards to the economic figures, I think they're going to be revised downwards. And the austerity packages that a number of economies, a number of governments around the globe are undertaking, that's also going to impact on future corporate earnings. So I think analysts will, going forward, revise their targets downwards, and we could see future corporate earnings come in on the low end.
And now every European market really waits to see what's happening in the US. Is Europe strong enough to actually continue growing if the US slows?
I think Europe is strong enough to continue to grow if the US slows, but then it's got to look at other markets, it's got to look at the Far East, it's got to look at places like Asia and potentially Africa as well for new markets of opportunity. It can't just solely rely on the US to sell its products.
Manoj, I wanted to actually talk about an interesting story on Asia, which is Deutsche Bank is starting a Hong Kong dark pool. It seems there's more and more demand for that kind of product. Why?
Well, the equity markets in Asia seems to be maturing, and hence the reason why we're seeing dark pool activity, or increased dark pool activity in the US. Now, it's in Asia rather, but it does sound quite sinister. It's something that has been going on since stock trading started. It's transactions occurring off the market. They're larger transactions. They're institutional traders conducting these transactions, these institutional brokers as well, and it's designed not to impact on the retail equity market. So it's an increasing trend that we're seeing. It's something that's easily accessible on a Bloomberg function or through companies like ETX Capital, but it's all part of the maturing market.
Yes, for investors, don't be concerned. It's not going to increase volatility in Asia.
No, it's transactions that go on behind the scenes, but they are reported at some point.
Manoj, thank you so much. Manoj Ladwa there.